the alley-oops at Kezar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Talking about draft targets, cornerback. And the 49ers are going to need a cornerback in this draft. And the question is, do they need somebody early in this draft? Do they need somebody later in this draft? The one thing we do know is they need to add to the cornerback room. Now, they've done a pretty good job of adding players to free agency, adding players off the waiver wire. They've continued to add people to the secondary, both at safety and at corner. But do you have that number 3 corner? For some, Trey Brown, who they signed from Seattle, could be that guy. He's missed 39 games, though, in his career, and so there's question marks. They didn't sign him to a lot of money, which means he's very much replaceable. And we've also seen some pundits start putting players like Stephon Gilmore and attaching them and him to the 49ers. I don't know if a older veteran makes sense with the way the 49ers are going about their business right now, but I think the part of it that does make sense is getting a cornerback that can be cornerback 3. If you're completely comfortable with Trey Brown being the third corner, that's great, because the nickel package is played over 70% of the time now in the NFL. It has become the new base package. You now need to have 3 defensive backs or 3 corners, a lot more than you need 3 linebackers. It is a different game. It's a spread open game. It's a wide open game, and you have to have those guys that are going to be able to cover at a high level. So getting a cornerback early has been the trend. We've seen the 49ers usually hit in the 3rd round with cornerbacks, Azere Thomas, other guys that they've been able to get up there in that 3rd round until last year. And all of a sudden, the value for cornerback went up a little bit for the 49ers. They seen that an impending free agency for Charvarius Ward meant we probably got to replace one of our starting cornerbacks. And they hit at the end of the 2nd round with Renardo Green. And Renardo Green had a great rookie season. He played really well. Is there things he still needs to get better at? Of course. Is he a finished product? No, he's not. There's a lot that needs to get better when it comes to Renardo. But what you got was a lot of promise and a lot of potential from Renardo Green. And Diamo Lenore came into his own as one of the top cornerbacks in the league and really one of the best nickel corners in the entire NFL. So you need to find another boundary corner that can step in, allow Diamo Lenore to go to nickel, and then come in and play on the outside. They got the veteran potentially with Trey Brown. They got Hodgins as well through free agency. Through the waiver wire. So they have guys that can potentially step in on the outside and play. But I think everyone knows they need more depth. Darrell Luter Jr., he hasn't really turned into the player that I think they were hoping he was going to be. A former 5th round pick who they thought potentially could be a starting boundary corner at some point. It didn't work out. Azere Thomas didn't work out. He's moved on. Now the veterans the 49ers had last year have both moved on as well. Rock Yassin, he goes and gets a deal elsewhere. Isaac Yedem, he goes and gets a deal elsewhere. Those 2 guys are not potential targets for your football team. Case Lucas, maybe he could step in and play nickel, but you really need a boundary corner because you want Diamo Lenore to be able to play on the inside. So hitting in the draft at cornerback is going to be important. There's still the opportunity to get a low-priced veteran, especially after the draft. If you're not able to hit on one of these, hit on a couple of guys in the draft, you go get one later that doesn't cost you a lot, doesn't go into the compensatory pick formula, and it doesn't really hurt you. So signing someone later is not off the table, but addressing it in the draft is important. We know the number 1 need for the 49ers in the draft is defensive tackle. We know after that it's probably edge rush, then offensive line, linebackers, another big need, and then cornerback. These are needs that the 49ers have to address. But at least one cornerback is coming off the board. I don't know if I believe it's going to be a 1st round cornerback, and I'll tell you why right after this. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you are going to bet, especially with the NCAA tournament going It's crazy. It's a lot of fun. You need to bet with Bet Online and enhance your viewing pleasure. It's so much fun to bet with Bet Online because Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for betting on all the madness. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, Bet Online is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from college basketball to a $200,000 bracket contest, Bet Online continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every Cinderella story to every hat trick, Bet Online has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. Bet Online, the game starts here. So why do I believe the 49ers are likely to not address cornerback in round one? Well, first off, that has not been something that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan had done in their time in San Francisco. The highest draft picks that they've had in the third round was Ahkello Witherspoon, then Azere Thomas, then last year was Bernardo Green. So pick 64 is the highest draft pick the 49ers have spent on cornerback. Now, there are a lot of people and a lot of very smart people that are saying the 49ers could address cornerback in round one. Daniel Jeremiah has them taking Jahdae Barron out of Texas, the cornerback slash safety, depending on how you see him in the NFL. Very talented. I've seen others go with Will Johnson, and potentially Will Johnson is that guy. Those two guys are first-round talents. They're probably going to go in the top 32 picks. So, with that being said, I don't know if there's a positional value to be able to put on one of these guys going that early. You look at both of them, they've had injury concerns. I think Jahdae Barron, less concerns than Will Johnson. So, yes, would they be dynamite corners on the outside for the 49ers? Yes. But do we have them starting over Bernardo Green or Deommodore Lenoir? I think, yes, they'll play 70+% of the snaps, but do you want that guy starting over them? I don't think that's where the 49ers go. I think they look more round 2, round 3, round 4, and beyond to potentially find a corner they could put on the outside. Deommodore Lenoir, for instance, was a 5th-round pick. So it doesn't mean you have to go round 1 corner, and I think that's good because you have other needs you need to address in round 1. Defensive tackle, defensive end, an outlier, potentially offensive line. If the right guy is there, maybe you go that direction. So I'm not going to talk a lot about Will Johnson or Jahdae Barron. Those aren't going to be the guys I start with. And I think that with the injury concerns about Siobhan Ravel, I'm not going to discuss him in a lot of detail right now. I do think he would be a potential. He's a first-round pick talent. That's probably going to go in round 2. I just think with the injury concerns, the 49ers will have some potential worries about him. But he's 6'3", 193 pounds, runs a 4.40, very talented guy. And so if they decided to go that direction, they normally go with a little bit shorter corners in their new regime. They've been going with guys around 6 foot, shorter than the 6'3" that Siobhan Ravel is. So Siobhan Ravel could be a potential target for the 49ers if they decide to go cornerback. I think it's the concern would have to be the injury concerns. And so we'll see. I think that he is a good player, and it would be a boundary corner that could step in day one. And if you need to go with a cornerback, Siobhan Ravel could be one of those guys. But the guys I want to really get into, and I want to start with one of my favorite guys in this draft, and I think he's a first-round talent that I think is probably going to go in the second round. And this was something that happened to me last year. I had a guy that I really liked in round 1. Everyone else said he was round 2. And so I think that when that happens, you're like, you see that again with another player, and you're like, whew, potentially this guy reminds me of, this type of situation I was in before. So last year, I really liked Kamari Lassiter. I thought Kamari Lassiter should have been a first-round pick. He went in round 2, and then he went to the Houston Texans, which is a scheme fit, and had 5 interceptions. And we'll see what his career ends up being, but it looks like that was the right type of evaluation. And I see another guy kind of in that light, where this guy I think should be a late first-round pick, and I think a lot of people are going to put him in the second round. But I'm a huge fan of Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. 6'1", 195 pounds. He ran a 4.40, which that's what you have to do if you're going to be an elite corner in the NFL. I think he has the necessary speed. He has the necessary length and size. He had 3 interceptions last year, 13 passes defended. And that was one of the things that we loved about Bernardo Green last year, was his ability to get his hands on the football. It didn't always result in interceptions for Renardo Green. In fact, very rarely did Renardo Green get interceptions in college, but we've seen that translate. If you're around the ball and you work on your hands, it can translate into the NFL game. And I think that's where we're at with Trey Amos. Now, he did have 3 interceptions, which means he can make plays on the ball. But the good thing is, with the 13 pass to defense, he's around the ball a lot. He had 50 tackles. He is a willing tackler, a very talented player. You look at all the numbers, they're really good numbers. This dude flies around. He makes plays. He's a good tackler. He's good in coverage. He plays zone. He can play man. He's just a complete player. I really am a huge fan of what he provides. And you're talking about a guy that if you need him to go play man press coverage, he can go out there and be a really solid man press corner in the NFL. He's got all the moves you could possibly want. He's got quick feet, violent hands. He's able to get on receivers, and he's able to disrupt their timing, which is very important when coming up and running man press. You want to make sure you stay in proper position and in phase while disrupting the timing of the route and probably the path of the route. And that's exactly what he's looking to do. He does a really good job of dictating receivers' releases. That's one thing I enjoyed watching on film. He's a guy that he drives really hard on footballs. So when they're running routes underneath or they are breaking underneath, he drives on it. And you see that closing time from the time his back foot hits until he gets to the receiver. He does a great job, and that's why he gets a lot of those pass defense. So that's one of the things I love to watch. I love the hip fluidity, seeing how they flip their hips, how they're able to move with receivers, but also how quickly can they drive on a football. That's going to be the difference between making a play on the ball and allowing a catch and tackling that ball carrier. So that is something that he does really well, and that allows him to cut down on open windows in zone coverage. So it looks like it's open, but with his ability to read and drive on the football, he's able to stop that at a high level. He's also very good in contested catch type situations, getting the ball to the ground and out of the receiver's hands. He's got good awareness in zone coverage, flowing and knowing where he's supposed to be, not just guarding an area, but finding men that go into his area. He does a really good job with that. He matches patterns at a high level, and he also understands route concepts. He's not fooled very often. High football IQ player. So you start seeing it all put together. The high football IQ combined with the player that's got the fluid hips and he's a fluid mover in his back pedal, the ability to drive on the football, the ability to play in space and be able to stay in zones and cut down the amount of space in zones. And you really get a serious player that can play for the 49ers. He's got great technique when it comes to tackling, and he's got enough power to be able to bring those guys down, even bigger ball carriers. He just does a really good job with all that, and he has the elite ball skills to go with it. I'm just a huge fan of Trey Amos. I think that he could be a big-time pick. I think if you took him with pick 43, yes, you've got a lot of other needs. You've got defensive tackle, defensive end, O-line, but you could plug and play him. You could have him learn, come in on those 70% of the snaps. Maybe Trey Browns does it early on in the season, but you're talking week 5, week 6, a lot like Renardo Green last year, that Trey Amos will be able to step in. And then what you have is you have these guys, these 3 cornerbacks, Lenore, Amos, Renardo Green, out there on the field for you for at least the next 3 seasons. That's tremendous value. There's a lot of value in Amos, and I think this dude's a stud. I think he's going to make a lot of plays in the NFL, and I'm a huge fan. So he's a guy I like. I mean, there are some things, right, that you always question, and one of those things is he's very physical and he's very handsy, which means it could create penalties in the NFL. That was something I noticed about him. But I think moving his hand, sometimes he gets his hand a little bit too high, and that's one thing the referees are going to notice. You get that hand a little bit closer to the hip, and you're not going to get as many penalties. So there are some little things that he could adjust that would make him less likely to get those penalties. But Trey Amos at pick 43, I think would be a huge value potentially for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, we got to go to my guy from Florida State, Azere Thomas. I'm just a huge fan. And, of course, the 49ers looked at Renardo Green last year, and Renardo was a stud. And then you look at Azere Thomas, and he's kind of built in a similar capacity. He's made of the right stuff. He's 6'2", 197 pounds. He ran a 4.5 40, which is good for a player that's 6'2". He got a little bit more athleticism, right, from a guy like Trey Amos, but Azere Thomas is very physical, and he plays you tough every single snap. He did have one interception last year, only 4 passes defended, but teams didn't really go at him a whole lot. He's not even 21 years old yet. He's just a guy that's got a lot of ability. I'm a fan, and I watched a lot of football from Florida State because that's my team. So I've seen him play a ton, and he's got the skills. He's got the skills to be able to get out there. So the length is going to be the first thing that you notice. And depending on what you're doing within the 49ers defense, as far as what Robert Saleh intends to run, which we're guessing is a lot of cover 3, cover 4 quarters, that's kind of Azere Thomas's, spot where he can kind of shine because of the length and the height. But he's also a very good press guy as well. And we know that at times the 49ers have liked on third down, especially over the last several years, once D'Amico Ryans kind of took over, to go ahead and man up on the outside and put a lot of pressure on those athleticism. So I think he's going to be a guy that could do that. So he is really good about making sure he makes plays, even when he's out of position because of the elite length. He's able to get to the football, and he does a really good job with it. Good recognition, especially when he's in off coverage. So if you're playing bail technique, he does a very good job of being able to realize what's going on and be able to stick with it. He plays well against the quick game things underneath. Those are things that he's able to drive on and make plays at the point of attack. He does a really good job with that. You look at the size compared to fluidity of the hips, it translates. As you get taller, you worry about how athletic those guys are going to be flipping their hips. Sometimes they get a little bit stiff. They're not able to change direction as quickly. He does it at a high level. So I'm a huge fan of his ability to change direction and be able to play like a smaller corner, even though he's 6'2". That is something that you really like. The speed to be able to run with the faster receivers, with the size to be able to compete with the bigger receivers. That's why he's a guy that could ultimately end up into the late first round because of his ability and talent. He has an ability to mirror people in coverage and stay right with them. He does have press coverage ability, which I talked about earlier. He's got good feet. He's got good handwork. He's got good technique that allow him to be able to stay on those receivers even when he goes up there and he plays them in press man coverage. Because sometimes there's a lot of guys that'll get feints, or there's a lot of guys that'll get out of position by throwing that initial strike in press man, and they will miss, and it'll be a really a big problem for him. But he matches releases without having to be grabby, without having to be getting holding calls at the line of scrimmage, which is huge. He's got the ability to play with such great hand usage, especially down the field, that I'm not worried about him getting penalties. He's a guy that understands what the role is. So Amos, I'm a little worried about the penalties with the hand grabby and just getting a little physical. I don't worry about that with Azere Thomas. I think he does a great job. He comes up and he plays against the run. He's physical. He's a guy that's a come up and smack you kind of guy. And so that's one of the characteristics you have to have if you're going to be a 49ers corner. You have to come up and be willing to be a force defender. And he's got all the capabilities to be a force defender. So you got the force defender, Azere Thomas, Trey Amos, right? You have to fit the bill if you're going to be a guy that plays for the 49ers. You also add in special teams ability for Thomas, which means he could help you early on, make him a gunner, make him one of those guys like Renardo Green was last year, step in and make an impact. He's got the ability, the speed, the size, the length. There's a lot to like about Azere Thomas. I think he's a guy that I think could develop into a really, really good corner in the NFL. So right now, Trey Amos, Azere Thomas, two guys that I'm a huge fan of starting in round 2, potentially for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I want to kind of flip this thing a little bit. Normally, there's other guys I want to talk about, but I like this guy a lot, and he's out of Kansas State, and you've probably heard about him a little bit. And is he a boundary corner? Is he a nickel corner? I think that's a question mark. But what he is he's a dang good player. Jacob Parish. And there's other guys that are going to be higher on the list. Jacob Parish is probably going to go in the 3rd round. But I just had to talk about him because I think he's a important player in this draft because if he gets selected by the 49ers, it could signal what their plans are for the future. It could mean Deommodore Lenoir is going to play more outside. You could go Jacob Parish on the inside. 5'10", 191 pounds. So a little bit shorter, but not smaller. 191 pounds for that height is still really good. He ran a 4.35 40 at the combine. He had 1 interception last season and 7 passes defended, came up and hit. He had 40 solo tackles, which is just outstanding. He's a guy that likes to be in on the action, in and around the box, making plays in the backfield. Nothing about his length, his size is going to impress you. He's just a guy that gets it done in the open field and makes plays. He's one of the better tackling corners in this draft. I think he fits what the 49ers do at a high level. His ability to play within the system is definitely there. He's got the ability to play, like a guy you need in the nickel. So if you're thinking about a player comp, he kind of reminds me of Asante Samuel Jr. a little bit. The way that he's so aggressive, getting downhill, making plays, drives on the football extremely well. This is a guy that just can match receivers. They run quick routes, he's on them. They run vertical, he's on them. He's just with them all the time. He doesn't allow them to get beyond his control. He stays in phase with them. He's able to understand what route concepts are going, which is extremely important because when you're playing in the slot, it's a two-way go. They have the space to be able to go in. They have the space to be able to go out, and it makes it more difficult playing within the box and playing that nickel corner. But he has a good understanding of where routes are going and route combinations that could come towards him, which means he's a good film study, a good football IQ guy. He's a guy that doesn't get fooled by double moves. He doesn't get fooled by misdirection. He stays on it, does a great job. One of the things I love about him is his anticipation. He anticipates throws, and he drives on the football very fast. So he's a guy that, yes, there's people that recognize it and then go. He anticipates it, which gives him the opportunity for big plays on underneath routes. He does a great job with that. He jumps into throwing lanes. He is a guy with perfect timing, stepping up and making plays as the ball's getting there. That's one of the things I love about the 3 corners we've talked about. All of them have a good internal clock to arrive when the ball gets there. Jacob Parish may be one of the best at doing that because he's able to transition from his back pedal to his drive seamlessly, smoothly. And they're all good, but he is really good. Some of that, you get the shorter corner, you get the more elite feet and change of direction. He does that. He just goes downhill in an instant and bam, he hits you. So really like what he's able to do with his ability to drive on the football, which is huge. He's good with hand fighting. He's able to get physical. He's able to pester wide receivers without getting penalties. He's very subtle with it, but he gets wrist control. He gets hand control. He gets his hand on the body, and it somewhat slows up their ability to be able to get on their lane and on their spot where they want to get to the top of their stem. He does a very good job of messing up the internal clock of a wide receiver, and disrupting timing is huge, especially in the NFL, where quarterbacks have to know where their wide receiver is going to be and get rid of the football because of how many tight windows there are. So really good there. He's going to bring special teams value so far. All 3 corners we've talked about special teams of value, and Brant Boyer will definitely enjoy that. I think if you had one question mark, it's going to be about the size, the 5'10", 191 pounds. Can he hold up consistently in the NFL game? It's not for him flying around and making plays. He's going to do that. He's going to hit you hard, and he's going to try to get you on the ground. The thing is, he's 191 pounds. Will those hits start to add up? I think that is the question mark. What will happen when he lines up against a bigger, more physical wide receiver? He normally is able to get off those, but what will happen when he lines up in front of a DK Metcalf or one of these bigger guys? Will he be able to disengage and make tackles? I think that's a question mark. But you're talking Jacob Parish in round 3. I mean, that would be a huge value for the San Francisco 49ers to potentially grab, what could be a starting nickel corner. I wouldn't put him just in that box, though. I think he could do other things as well. I think he could play the outside, play the boundary corner. Now I want to talk about cornerback out of Notre Dame, Benjamin Morrison. And I think he's going kind of under the radar, maybe forgotten. I think this is a guy with potential first-round talent. I haven't officially put him in the first round, but I think he's got first-round talent. And the big question was, what was he going to run in the 40 because he's dealt with some injuries. He's dealt with some concerns physically. He ran a 4.39. He showed the necessary speed. And so I think that some of those questions are starting to go away for Benjamin Morrison. But here's a guy that at pick 43, you might get first round ability at, right? We talked about this with Trey Amos and Azere Thomas, guys that have first round talent that could go in round 2. And I think that's the same thing with Benjamin Morrison. That's part of the reason I don't think the 49ers need to go corner at pick 11 with Jahdae Barron. I don't think they need to go that direction because you have guys that probably have late first round talent you can get in round 2. I think Benjamin Morrison's one of those guys. So 6 foot, 193 pounds, fits the 49ers profile, 4.39 40. He had 20 tackles and 14 solo tackles, but we know that he's dealt with some injuries. So that is a big concern. He didn't play as much as everybody else last year. So, there's other seasons he was way more productive. In 2022, he had 6 interceptions. In 2023, he had 3. So he's a guy that makes plays on the football. And we've seen that when he's healthy, he can be an absolute playmaker. And he was a big time player for that Notre Dame defense throughout the years. He's a guy that does well in coverage. He can play man press. He can play in zone. And, he just plays really, really tough. He's got really good processing speed, and he's able to read route combinations. It's something that he does well. Another guy that, hits the back foot, and he's got an understanding of what he sees, and he drives on the football. There's not a lot of thinking involved. He's just got that instinct, that natural progression through what he's looking at, and gets downhill and makes plays. So I'm a fan of him. I think that he does a great job in zone coverage, reading through the receiver to the quarterback. And when that quarterback is ready to deliver the football, he's ready to drive, and he drives through that wide receiver. So sometimes you'll see him kind of almost run those routes for the wide receiver. That's kind of the intellect that we're seeing, the football IQ, and that's why I like him a lot. He's got the ability to track the ball down the field, and he's got natural hands to be able to not just knock the football away from a wide receiver, but also to make the play on the football and get an interception. I think he's a guy that could produce a lot of interceptions in the NFL. His ability, the IQ to understand what he's looking at, drive on the football, and then good hands to be able to make interceptions. We've seen it in his career. 6 interceptions, 3 interceptions. He's got a lot of ability and talent. He's also got good short area quickness, which allows him to match receivers, especially underneath, because of his technique. And that's what you're looking for. Those guys that can match those receivers, stay on them, and not leave any area for the wide receiver to be able to get room to make a play. And Benjamin Morrison matches routes really well. He plays physical. He plays through the receiver. He does a really good job. He's very exceptional with those skills to mirror wide receivers, which I love. He's got good zone coverage ability. He will bait quarterbacks into making bad throws, and then he will drive on the football and get there. So he's very comfortable in zone coverage. Like I said, reading through the receiver to the quarterback. There's not a lot of wasted motion with him. He's very, very good as a guy that understands what he's looking at. He has good pop as a tackler, coming downhill and making plays, which once again, all the cornerbacks we talk about, that's what they have to do. They have to come downhill and make a play. I think he does have position versatility, a lot like Deommodore Lenoir has, but I could say that about Trey Amos and Azere Thomas. And, pretty much everyone I've talked about, they could play nickel and play on the outside. And I think that this is one that really makes a lot of sense. So I'm a big fan of Benjamin Morrison. I think he could be available at pick 43. And I think he would be a solid pick for the 49ers. And we're talking about a lot of guys as day 2 picks that the 49ers could be potentially interested in right here. I'm going to talk about another guy because this is an interesting player. And he's, the reason that he's so interesting is because he has a position change. And I get it. I'm not going to be able to talk about all the guys in this one. And there's a lot of guys I want to talk about. There's some guys that are going to be day 3 picks that are fun too. But Darian Porter out of Iowa State, and this could end up being a 3rd round pick, but 6'3", 195 pounds. And the reason that he's so interesting, he's a former wide receiver that has moved to cornerback, and he has done just a really good job translating his game in college football. Last year, he had 3 interceptions. He had 2 passes defended, 10 tackles, 17 solo. I think that's the part. 18 tackles last season. I think that's the part, right, that's going to be the concern is some of the physicality. Well, when you're talking about a guy with ball skills, he's one. He's got the ability to match the bigger wide receivers like 6'3", nearly 200 pounds. He's got the hands to be able to go get the football. And he's got all the athleticism you could possibly want. 4'3", 40 at 6'3", tremendous. His 3-cone, a 6'7", top 87 percentile, which is fantastic. He was good in the shuttle. He was good in the broad jump. His 10-yard split is a 1.49. Athletically, so gifted. He's all over you everywhere you want to be. He's a man press monster. I think he's only going to get better as he gets more comfortable playing in a back pedal and playing corner. This dude is crazy good. And I think that there's a lot of things that he needs to get better at. Of course, there's holes in his game, but I think you see the potential and the upside of what he could be. And the crazy thing is he could be a late round 2, early round 3 guy. He could be a guy the 49ers see at pick 65 and say, you know what, we need to go up into the beginning of the 3rd round and get him. Go up 10 spots and pick him up because he is extremely talented for his size. And if you're looking for a tall guy to be able to play in zone coverage, but can also step up on a team's best receiver and get physical with them, he's got the ability, and I think he's going to get even better. But when you're looking at that 6'3" body with that speed, he can run vertically with every wide receiver in the NFL going downfield. He matches with them lengthwise. That's one of the things you have to like. He is a guy that has the natural ability to track the ball because he's a former wide receiver. His timing, especially on balls that need to be high pointed, is absolutely fantastic. He does that at a high level. He's got good instincts in zone coverage, plays the cover 3 exceptionally well. That's exactly what you like to see. And then with all good cover 3, with all good man coverage guys, they use the sideline as a extra defender. We used to teach that all the time. We ran a lot of man principles when I coached, and that was one of the key factors to everything is using that sideline to help you and to be an extra defender. And he does that at a high level. Big fan of what he could do for the 49ers. He's got good route recognition, understands it from the offensive side of the football, understands what the route concept is trying to accomplish, does a very good job playing with anticipation. And so the fact that he does it already at this level kind of gives you hope that it's going to get even better in the future. I think he could help on special teams as well because of his athleticism and the ability to get off the ball with the length. I think that he's really good potential target for the 49ers, especially at the beginning of round 3. He's got the ability to reroute receivers because of his physical nature that he plays with. He's fun. I mean, he's a lot of fun. I think the question marks are going to be, we talked about some of the other guys, he's not as fluid with his hips when it comes to getting out of his back pedal or rolling over to run with a vertical route, but he has the makeup speed to make up for it. He has good change of direction, which means he could do it. I don't think that he's going to be a guy that can play in the nickel. So that's going to be a little bit of a difference from the other guys, but he's definitely got the athleticism to be able to do it. Darian Porter is a fun prospect, potentially for the San Francisco 49ers. So we named off some pretty good guys in this episode. We talked about Trey Amos. We talked about Azere Thomas. We talked about Darian Porter. We've talked about a lot of guys. I went Blake on Jacob Parish, but we did talk about Jacob Parish as well. He's a lot of fun. So Jacob Parish was kind of the outlier as somebody that's more saw as a 3rd round pick. Darian Porter, I think end of round 2, early round 3, potentially could be a guy they go with. Benjamin Morrison also I can't forget about. Now, a few names I wasn't able to go over, but I want to at some point is Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky, who ran a 4.28, which is ridiculous. I think he's somebody that I'm interested in breaking down. I was just watching Dorian Strong the other day, cornerback from Virginia Tech. So I want to do a little bit more work on him. Same with Denzel Burke, another guy that I want to do work on. But those guys are kind of more of the 3rd/4th round potentially available. There's lots of cornerbacks to look at. There's a couple of guys, of course, that I think could be third day gems. One of those guys is Quincy Riley. I talked about him in one of my previous episodes about gems in day 3. So lots more guys to talk about. I just wanted to kind of highlight that. But I'd like to thank you guys all for watching. Let me know, who is your favorite corner for the 49ers? Would you go round 2 corners? you want to wait and go round 3, round 4, let me know in the comment section and just tell me. And if there's somebody I didn't talk about or I didn't mention, let me know so that way I could watch those guys. I've been watching a lot of the corners, kind of working through them. I focused on a lot of other positions early, but I'm getting deeper and deeper into the cornerbacks. I've got more work to do, of course. There's a lot of prospects to watch, but let me know. Like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate it. If you're listening audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode was brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.